All right, well, thank you so much for everyone coming through today's event Bootcamp to break through AI in action with Jonathan or Ben Newell. Again, I'm Jonathan Turing, the head of community at Codecademy. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we have someone who is a recent AI slash machine learning bootcamp grad and probably one of the most interesting people that I have ever met. Not a hyperbole. We've done a lot of learner stories over the years, but if there's anything that this one teaches, it will be about perseverance and tips about how to build your brand. A few fun facts about Ben. He's a AI engineer and program leader with more than 14 years across healthcare analytics, SaaS, AI product development. He's known for turning ideas into real scalable products. He is the founder of ImprvHealth, an AI-powered fitness coaching app. He built end to end and launched after 9 rejections. FYI, for those who want to get started on their New Year's resolution goals a month early, this is the time to download that app. He was also an award-winning innovator, placing first in Codecademy's AI Agents Bootcamp for the clinical AI Navigator, and won the Technical Innovation Award at the ABC Global Hackathon. He was the technical program manager at iFit, leading applied AI and engineering initiatives in the health and performance space. And if that weren't enough, he's a resilience-driven builder and mentor, and he's passionate about AI-driven fitness science, human performance, and coaching. He has helped me with workout advice, okay? Whether or not I'm doing enough sets and reps. And yeah, if you have any questions throughout this conversation today, please drop it in the chat, and I will be sure to ask Ben. So, first question, Ben, tell us a bit about your story and how did that lead you to enter tech?
Yeah, so thank you. Super excited to be here. I think, starting out as a kid, I always wanted to do something special in athletics. And, my path into tech wasn't traditional, but as I was growing up, I was a skateboarder and ended up getting into a car crash when I was 15. And we actually hit a pregnant cow and it came through the front of the car and fractured my skull, broke my nose. And I knew like instantly that, my skateboarding career was over. So that's kind of what got me on the path of, you know, when something's taken away from me, I just had to get back up and try again. And that led me into health and performance and science, which, I did for several years. And then as I, you know, learned more and more about fitness and programming, I, started working with engineers at ABC Fitness and really saw them fixing code. And I thought, wow, if I learned how to do that, I can take my ideas and bring those to life. And so that's when I stumbled upon Code Academy and basically started taking as many courses in coding, like full stack engineering, Python, SQL, as I could, and just learning those hard skills so that I can bring my ideas to life. And so, yeah, that's just a little bit about myself and super excited to be here. But
So Ben, there was a lot that you divulged there. So many questions. Pregnant cow, skateboarding, tech, right? So let's break it down a little bit. Starting with the first part, could you tell us about just like, where were you born? More about the story about hitting the pregnant cow, your skateboarding career, just to provide additional context before maneuvering into tech.
yeah, so I was born in St. Petersburg, Florida, moved to Texas when I was two, and grew up and went to Sherryland High School. And from there, sorry, my dogs are barking if you can hear
No,
them.
don't hear anything. You're good.
Yeah, so, went to Sherryland High School from when I was in kindergarten to when I graduated and played sports, was really into math and science, and, started skateboarding when I was about 12, became an amateur when I was about 12 and a half, 13, and, was going to skateboard competitions and, really just building up my brand in skateboarding around Texas. And one night, I was about 15 years old and we were I was with my brother and we were driving home from an event and we were just on a farm road and there was no lights and there was a pregnant cow in the middle of the road and we just didn't see it in time and my brother hit the cow and it came through the car and I was asleep and I woke up to bloody nose and a fractured skull and that kind of derailed my career as a skateboarder and got me into learning about, when you get hit in the face, that famous quote, what are you going to do about it? You're going to get back up.
You're talking
And
about the
so,
Mike Tyson quote? Mike
yeah, it's the
Tyson quote.
Mike
Everyone has a
Tyson quote.
plan. Everyone has a plan
Yeah.
before it. Or, yeah, 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 yeah.
And
Gotcha,
so,
gotcha.
yeah, I got hit in the face pretty hard that night. And, it took a while for me to realize that, but I had to use that as really as motivation to just keep going, keep trying to figure it out, keep persevering, and just trying to find my way after that. So, got really into tech or really into fitness and programming and health and science, and um, ultimately that led me into tech, just because of the programming aspect of fitness and healthcare and the creativity side and builder side. But
Now, was the interest in health, like, was that something that followed the accident? Like, was that in high school? Was that, after high school? Can you provide a little bit more detail about like how you started cultivating that interest for health?
yeah, so the interest in health and wanting to do that as a career, that came really at an early age. I wanted to become a doctor. In seventh grade, I was very interested in science and math, and I really wanted to become a surgeon. And so it cultivated at a young age. And yeah, that kind of has just always been with me. I loved exercising and working out, and that's kind of how I went from playing sports to getting into skateboarding and um, ultimately why I'm still in the field. It's just kind of always been with me and it's grown over the years.
Okay, so you were in health, right? And was this something that you tried to study like after high school?
Yes, yes, after high school. So I actually, during high school, after the cow crash, I missed hundreds of days of school. And it was very challenging for me to really pass. And I actually failed my senior year, and it was another one of those hits. But I, had a good support system and was able to pass 6 months late. And I got into exercise science as my major right after high school. Did that for a while, took a break, and ultimately, took a break for a couple years and then got back into school into sports management and finished out my bachelor's in sports management and then got my master's in exercise science and my MBA in healthcare management. But it was not a straight path. It was a bumpy road, but I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to set the stage. You had a plan to be like a professional, like skateboarder. You hit the cow, kind of derailed, but you still cultivated the interest for like professional sports or for health and fitness. Was able to get a couple degrees, right, in relation to that. What was then your segue into actually moving into tech? Like, when was the first time you stumbled upon it, learned about it, wrote your first piece of code? Would love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the first time I learned about tech was I'd been working at Union General Health System for about 9 years, and I was looking to transition out of Union General Health System into tech, Amazon, Google, and so I wanted to learn SQL. And during that process, I jumped on a SQL course, took that, and ended up getting a job at ABC Fitness. And during the ABC Fitness job, I was working on some data engineering projects that were focused on like our enterprise customer segments. And I really wanted to get into the technical side of things. So I took the time to go outside of work and learn. And on some of the really the moment that I said, I think I need to like really dive into this was we were working on a project. I saw a developer make a change in code and it fixed the bug and the code ran successfully. And I thought, wow, this is like an English language that I could learn. And if I learn this, I could take my ideas to real life. That was about 3 years ago, about 3.5 years ago. And when I saw that, I immediately signed up for courses, and Codecademy is kind of the platform that I've spent most of my time on since then.
I did not realize when I first spoke to you before doing this event that it had only been 3.5 years since you started to learn how to code. That's insane. That is insane. That just shows like how much hustle you got. So with that transition, right, from you being focused on like health and fitness and then starting to learn how to code, yes, you had that spark. But can you talk a little bit more about like what the skill or the mindset that you had for transitioning into a completely new field? I mean, maybe not it's a complete transition, but just like totally learning something new, right? Like you never had no one like went up to you and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna teach you like how to code. Like this is something that you were interested in." But like, can you just tell me a little bit more about like your mindset and like how you started to develop a new skill?
Yeah, man, I'm gonna have to go back to skateboarding on this one. So as a skateboarder, you have to try a trick and learn it, and it usually takes hundreds, if not thousands of tries. And during that process, you have to think about how you're going to do it. Then you really, the skateboard hits you in the legs, you fall down, you get back up, and you try again. And so, doing that year after year, I developed the ability to fail and be okay with it, and then try again until I succeeded. And I think it's, failing forward. And so, going into tech was very similar. I didn't realize it until a while back, like 6 months to a year ago. It's very similar to like weightlifting, repetition, and skateboarding repetitions. But you have to be okay with failing and trying again because we all know like when you hit a bug, you're going to have to try to figure it out. And it's probably not going to be fixed on the first time. And so having that mindset of like, hey, it's okay to fail. Let me just keep trying and think outside of the box until I can fix this. So I think having persistence and having the ability to think outside the box to solve a problem and just don't give up. And pretty soon you're going to get closer and closer to fixing it or, solving the problem. And as you get closer, you actually, like, in my opinion, get more motivated because as you get closer, the pressure to fix it is like even more intense. And
Mm.
so I think repetition, having the willingness to not have an ego and be able to fail, and then keep trying and keep persisting, and you'll persevere and you'll solve the problem. And it's never going to be a straightforward path, but I
Mm.
think those are some of the skills that are not sexy and maybe not talked about enough, but just keep getting up, trying again, fail forward, and persist until you can um, solve the problem. And those are some skills that
Mm.
are gonna like take you a long way in any industry.
What you're trying to say is skateboarders will make the best coders. So no, but that's all great advice. It's like having that persistence, having that repetition. I think that's so important, right? You can like learn something, but until you do it over and over and over again, it doesn't really like get into your brain. So we have someone who has raised his or her hand, Plain Lover. Interesting name. Did you want to unmute and ask her a question? You are also welcome to
I
enter
I
it in the chat.
I posted a thing in the chat of my a game I made in HTML and CSS.
Yeah. Okay. That's super cool. I
Yeah,
totally
so
saw that.
can
I
you
was
please
gonna.
check it out? Is in the chat.
Yeah. So this event. Thank you
It
so
took me
much
three
for.
days.
Got you. We'll definitely have to check it out. If anyone else wants to check it out, that's totally cool. Plain Lover, excuse me, if you have a different name. But this conversation is more so centered around Ben's journey. I don't know, Ben, you want to check it out later or anybody
Oh
else?
yeah, I'll
But
check it
yeah,
out later
yeah.
for sure. Yeah,
But
definitely.
definitely, but thank you so much for asking that question. Really appreciate it. Okay. So pivoting a little bit, okay, so you learned how to have like this grit, this persistence from skateboarding and applied it to coding. It's only been 3.5 years, but just tell me about like those 3.5 years and like what that coding journey was like. And maybe you could tie it to a couple things. One, how you ended up in the machine learning AI boot camp in addition to the fact that you also were able to develop your career professionally. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when I first started, I got into this back end, like kind of like Codecademy has back end, front end, and full stack developer courses. So I took a back end course and learned kind of how to develop an app from the back end. And that course was the framework for me building Improve Health, the app that, I have on the App Store now. But during that time, it was very hard to do. I had to fail a lot, but it taught me a lot about end-to-end building, and it made me more interested in really diving deep on Python, SQL, and some of like these things that are very important in the industry. And also, just to note, a lot of AI is built around Python. So I knew with AI back then, with ChatGPT first coming out 3 years ago, that if I got really good at Python, I might be able to use that skill in the future to build something with AI. And so I was doing all this work outside of my normal job. So I really wanted to learn. And then I was applying what I could in my career. And I think it supercharged my career, but my career wasn't focused on technical things. I would try to sprinkle it in as much as possible. Um, and that's what helped, I would build dashboards with SQL and, display those to execs at work. And I think that really got me a long ways in my career. But just throughout the time, I was just looking for like in my career, what problems were the companies trying to solve and how could I learn different types of coding languages to help solve those problems for them. And
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
that's kind of been my playbook over the last couple of years. And I would say like when I was building the app Improve Health, I got it on the App Store. But at the end of that was in July of this year. I was like, man, I really, I never went to get my CS degree. I really want to try a boot camp. And I went back on Codecademy and I saw that you guys were launching the boot camps for the first time and, for a really reasonable price compared to the competitors. And so I said, I've got to jump in and get in the first cohort because that's exactly what I want to do. And so that's kind of how I stumbled upon the AI agents boot camp. And it was just kind of like another stepping stone to my career in tech, and which also led me to more technical roles and consulting work and future opportunities. So hopefully,
Yeah.
Yeah, you might have some questions though.
Yeah. Denny asked, when did the boot camp happen? It happened a few months ago. We launched boot camps, the first cohort in several different career paths. And yeah, Ben was part of our first machine learning slash AI one. So, but just really quick, Ben, something to know, something that I really love about your story that I think would be really uh, a good message to send out to a lot of beginner learners is that your learning was like very intentional, right? Like you wanted to learn X to get Y result, right? Like you wanted to learn SQL or Python to solve for whatever like problem. And I received tons of questions from newbies about, hey, what coding language should I take? Well, it's like, well, I always reply back, well, one, we have a sorting like quiz, right? But
Hmm.
then two, it's like, what are you trying to solve? Like, what do you want to build? Because if you can imagine like what your goal is, then you work backwards and then figure out what are the different technical skills that you need. And I think having that intentionality is something that is missing from a lot of folks. Maybe not necessarily folks on this call or this event, but I think in general, like you shouldn't really do anything without any kind of intention, let alone coding, right? Because it's quite labor intensive, right? It asks a lot. So tell me about the machine learning slash AI bootcamp experience. Like, what was it like? How long was it? Your instructor, and then the project you built at the end.
Yeah, so that AI boot camp was about 5 weeks long. Started in, believe, the first week of August and ended mid-September. And each week we learned some type of framework or something that was pivotal in building the big project at the end of the boot camp. So each week we were building mini projects and lots of good stuff. We were learning things like RAG and what vector DBs are and how to leverage large language models and things like OpenAI to build products using AI. And so the first couple of weeks was just kind of laying the groundwork and the foundation of like what AI is and how you could use it to build things. And then weeks like 3 through 5 or 6 were more about how do we apply these skills to actually build a project and get it to work. And then the last week was like really focused around like getting that final project done. And, we had a competition and I was able to secure a first place spot. Um, and, the last week we went, our instructor Rocky was really helpful in like helping answer questions about resumes or interviews and things like that. So it was really well rounded. Like it started, the way that it started was like all around explaining the fundamentals and the basics and then like how to design an end-to-end product. And then it went into like each aspect of that. And then it went into building the product and then into like how do you interview and like set yourself up for success to land a role in tech. So I think it was like really well structured. It was 2 times a week on the weekend, which was perfect for me because I was working a full-time job. And we used Discord for our chat. The instructor and the assistant was very helpful in answering questions and giving documentation and like, it was just a really good experience. And one of the things that I liked the most about it was like Rocky, our instructor, would just reiterate how to do an end-to-end design of something. So like architecting an app, like what does it look like from start to finish? That was like one of the biggest pieces for me. Because in a lot of coding interviews, those are the questions that they want to know. They want to like understand like how you think about architecting an app and then using AI after the fact to improve it or optimize it and that type of thing. Um, so yeah, it was a great course, man. I want to take another one.
I'm sure you could. We could definitely talk after this. Okay, so You take it, you have it's you said 5 weeks. You have a challenge. You won first place. Tell me about after the boot camp, just about like how you utilized your accomplishment. How did you use that to develop your professional career? And I guess before we segue into that, Denny's wrote, let's see here, just went away. Can you expand more on the architecture? Do you learn all that in the boot camp?
Yeah, yeah, you do. So you can learn it like Rocky, his one of his biggest things is like architecture and design. He loves it and he's very passionate about it. So he does a really good job of explaining like how do you get data, take the data, and then start coding so you can like ingest the data and build an app and just goes through each process to build like an end-to-end flow of how an app would work from start to finish. So he definitely, the instructor definitely like explains the architecture and how to um, really understand that and learn that. And he's repeats it over and over again so it sticks. But then he also has like blogs and whatnot that you can follow along, and he posts stuff like that as well. Um, so yeah, the instructor's really, really good at that aspect and really good at reiterating each step. So that was one of like my favorite things about the course.
Denny's, does that answer your question? Please let us know if you would like Ben to elaborate more. Yes. So yeah, can you talk a little bit more about post boot camp life, right? What would you do? You got first place. How did that affect your career? What did you decide to do? Would love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so got first place and so when I got a lot of messages from founders and startups looking to, use AI agents in healthcare. Like that's a really big thing right now. But at the time, I was actually switching out of healthcare to go back into fitness tech. I took a role working with engineers, building out solutions like for fitness, like AI solutions for fitness. Um, so yeah, right after I landed a new awesome job, then I also landed a, a lot of conversations with CFOs and just high level people that want to adopt, you know, the actual product that I built in the boot camp. So to me, that was amazing. And so those conversations are still going on, and I'm very excited about them. But just having that product and having it as like something that works in production on your resume is massive and bigger than the first place win. So yeah, I think life after boot camp has been amazing, and it's opened up a lot of opportunities. And honestly, I think the doors are not closed yet. So excited to
Yeah.
see what happens next.
So a couple things with that. So the first thing is that we receive a lot of questions too about, well, getting a certificate, whatever it may be, a course, career path, boot camp, will that secure a job? The answer is undoubtedly no. It will not get you a job, right? It just is maybe a proof point for some kind of, hey, this person has taken the time to develop a skill, right? But what people really want to see is your portfolio, the projects that you have like completed. So I would love to learn a little bit more about like, okay, you created this project, right? Or
Yeah.
you created this thing. Could you tell me a little bit more about like how you spotlighted it, how you let people know that you created this thing, and then instead of like pitching it to all these different founders, these CTOs, like how did they come to you? Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I was very public about like building. And so every time LinkedIn is like a big platform for me. And Posting and building in public is something that, is scary, but I have never shied away from it. So I think what helped me a lot was just posting my updates and building and showing my progress in real time to the community on LinkedIn. And that ultimately brought a lot of curiosity from different people into like, hey, Ben, what are you building? Want to be a part of it? And that just opened the doors, just being transparent and sharing updates in person or like not in person, but to the community. And then, like you said, having a portfolio. So another thing that I did was, used Lovable, which is another AI tool to build a like website with all of my projects on there. So you can go to something called Improve Labs, which is a web page I built, and in there it has every single one of my projects. You can click on it and it'll take you directly to like what the project's about. And it's like a living portfolio. And so like to your point about, you know, can a certification land you a job? Maybe not, but having a portfolio, building in public, and there's a book, it's like being so good that you can't be, I can't remember the quote, but it's like you got to be so good that like it's like undeniable, basically.
Mhm.
So I think building in public was huge for me. Sharing my story and sharing my updates brought a lot of curiosity, and that transparency with my community opened up doors.
Could we be a little bit more specific with like building in public here? Because I think that's something that I don't think like anyone that I've like interviewed for an event has ever like talked about. So can you talk a little more about like the consistency, what you were trying to communicate, like how consistency in terms of like what was the cadence, right? Was it weekly, daily? What were you trying to communicate? Was it um just like the challenges that you encountered, the things that you accomplished? And I would ask too, like why were you willing to be so vulnerable to share your successes as well as presumptively your failures, right? Would love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think one, just a easy one is, startups like me, right? I consider myself a startup founder. I have a company. And so, but with that, you have to spend money on marketing and different things. So as a 1 to 2 person team, me and my wife, it's like, how can I leverage my community to build in public? And what I mean by that is if I generate, let's say, a new UI, like the background of your Zoom, right? Looks like really clear and awesome. And I post that to my community and I get feedback from them and likes. And that kind of gives me a signal to like keep moving forward with this or maybe change direction. So, building in public like is scary, but I think it tells you if you're moving in the right direction with what you're building and if it's something that people might want. And so the approach I took was I'm just going to share what I'm building because it keeps me accountable, even though it's scary. And that accountability builds trust with your community. And that trust and transparency goes a long way when, you're asking for feedback on what you're building. And um, you take the feedback and you iterate and improve on it. And ultimately, it shapes your product. And so, building in public can mean a lot of different things, but most of the time, like it's sharing your updates, even if they're not perfect. And it's just sharing your story and your journey and letting your community be a part of that. And it's really awesome when the community gets involved and help shape something you're trying to build.
Mhm. No, thanks so much for sharing. And then with Lovable, like, why did you choose Lovable specifically? There are a bevy of different AI builders out there. How did you choose that one? How many projects did you decide to feature on your portfolio? Feel free to drop it in the link too, so people can actually see. And Yeah, like you build this thing. You're very public about posting consistently. Um, how Could you tell me a little bit more about like how frequent people like reach out to you and want to collaborate or learn a little bit more about like what you've done?
Yeah. So the first part, lovable. I feel like it's been so long since I picked lovable. AI is just moving such at a rapid pace, but lovable was something I just stumbled upon. And actually, it's a front end tool. So I was like, ooh, this tool can build a prototype really fast for front end, like UI stuff. And I wanted to build a website for my app, Improve Health, because as part of the App Store, like guidelines, you have to have a web page with email address, etc. And I tried a lot of different tools, and I just got down to Lovable and created it, and it's in that portfolio.
Hmm.
If anybody clicks on the link, they can find it in there. And I just love the UI and the ability to build something really quickly. It leverages a lot of large language models as well, so you can use prompt engineering to build something really quick and then do a preview and then kind of change it in real time if you want.
Hmm.
And so that's how I got onto Lovable. Um, and then in terms of like people reaching out, I'd say, being public and building in public, especially in the fitness space, I had people reaching out to me, and I still do, multiple people a week. Whether it's just people trying to collaborate with me, build something with me, or ask for my advice on like their resume or what they should build or how they should break into tech. Um, yeah, I would say it's a weekly thing. Like last week, I had somebody reach out and said they have like a database for exercises, but they need somebody to help build the AI portion and like basically the full app. And so they want to collaborate with me on that. So it's like I wouldn't even say it's hit or miss, but it's definitely weekly. People are reaching out and um it's been great, man.
Yeah. With that said, you're able to establish so many connections, and I think this is such a an important lesson for all of us. We can even people who are in the field, right? You could always do a better job with building up your brand. Speaking of brand, like are there certain things that you want to communicate with like your personal professional brand, right? Like what is like you're on LinkedIn, you're building in public, like what are you trying to communicate out to the world? And what's some advice that you have for people attending today?
Yeah, like communicating. Um, can you ask that one more time? I was reading the chat
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
another
yeah.
message
So,
in there.
no. I mean, it's actually, you know what? Maybe we should start with Denny's question next here. Do you get tired from all the messages, and which one do you choose to respond to? And then we can segue
Yeah,
from that.
yeah. So that question's interesting because there's a lot of messages out there, and there's a lot of like bots and fake recruiters. And so, like, for example, I made a post, the biggest post of my like LinkedIn career last week, and I think I got like 1,500 profile views from it. Well, out of there was, I don't know, 50 or 60 fake profiles. And so, there was messages in there that I could tell weren't real. So you have to be, I would say, like, here's how I discern and decipher which ones I respond to. Like, if I see a message, I go directly to the person's account and I look at how many followers they have. And if they have 0 followers or 10 followers and there's no post history, I don't respond to those because those can maybe be fake. And so, um, but outside of that, like the messages that I get, I don't get tired of them because I'm just so thankful to get them because most of the time it's people asking for help. I had somebody from New York or New Jersey last night reach out to me and he said, "You shared your story on LinkedIn and I was hit with the same thing and I really would love to share my story with you, Ben. Can we talk?" And he called me like at 8 o'clock last night and we're supposed to talk after this meeting tonight. And I don't even know the guy, but um, you know, and it's just I want to give back, I've always been a type of person that wants to give back and help people, especially, breaking into tech non-traditionally. It hasn't been easy. And so anybody that's struggling, like I've been through so many ups and downs. And so when I get these messages and people just need help, I want to help them out however I can. And so there can be times where there's lots of messages, but when they come from like a place of goodness, I never get tired of those messages because, I feel like I might be able to help that person out.
That that's amazing that you're taking the time to like help other people, and that's also a common theme with people who are more experienced in tech because it's so hard, especially to get like your first opportunity to kind of reach down, so to speak, to help pull people up. With that said, what are the job market is really tough right now, right? AI has transformed the way that we learn as well as do work. What would be some tips that you would give people trying to break into tech or maybe break into a more technical role? Like, let's say they're in a non-technical role at a company and they're trying to become do a more technical role. What are some tips and tricks for not only learning the content, right? The skills, but then also building a brand because that is building a brand is obviously like a differentiator between all the different folks out there.
Yeah, I would say if you're in a company, you're in a non-tech role, but you want to become in a more tech role, you need to, one, just find out what tech stack your company's using if you plan on staying there. And for example, if you're in company A and they're using Python and SQL for all their data engineering, then if I was you, I would go onto Codecademy and say, let me do an intro to Python course, let me do an intro to SQL course, and then I would take that and run with it and just kind of use it like as a stepping stone and like building blocks. So I would take that and then I would go talk to my boss and say, hey, I'm interested in getting a little bit more technical, and our tech stack is Python and SQL. Is there any opportunity where I can help? And maybe your boss says, well, do you know any? And you say, well, I've been working outside of work to build up these skills and I'm learning and I'm willing to learn more. And if there's any projects, I would love to help out. That's like step one. And then you find out at step two, like who's working on those projects right now. So if your engineering team is working on them and you find who those people are, maybe you send them a message or talk to your boss and say, hey, can I send this person a message? Um, and ask them if they would take a call with you for 30 minutes so you can understand what they're working on and how they got into their role. And if they maybe even would want to mentor you or take you under their wing. That's something that I've done over and over again in my career that I didn't touch on. I'm always asking people, hey, can you teach me what you know? Like, I'm willing to learn and willing to sign up for like extra credit projects just to help out so that I can learn, knowing that in the short term, it might take more time, but long term, if I learn these skills and build these relationships, it's going to go a long way. And so, um, those are a couple steps. I would say like step one is figure out if you're in a non-tech role, what tech stack your company's using, and then try to research those outside of work. Then talk to your manager about potentially helping on that, and then have, you know, do some homework, as they would say, and show up to your a conversation with your manager saying, I've been doing this on the side and I already have like proof that I'm willing to do this. And if there's any projects you would like or I could help on, then, I would love to volunteer for them. Then, step two is seeing if you can get mentored by somebody on the tech team or just get a one-on-one with them to see if they would actually just help you understand what they're working on to see if that's something you would really want to do. And so, like, that's what I would do, and that's what I've done multiple times in my career. Um, so that's what I would do at work. And then I think the second piece was like building a community, right?
Yeah, like building a brand to
Yeah.
help separate yourself from the field.
Yeah, separating yourself from the field, too, is it's tough. There's so many people out here that are really smart. So finding out what you're really passionate about and your niche, and then just doubling down on that's going to be key because when the going gets tough and it gets hard, if you're really passionate about it, you're going to keep going. And so I would think building your brand is, for example, me on LinkedIn, I've been building my brand there for several years. And that was just me either showing up consistently, whether I got a certification or I got laid off of my job or something, and just being transparent about my ups and my downs. There was a test that I took a couple months ago that I failed by 2 points, and I shared that with the community, and then I shared with them when I passed it. So, building a brand to me is like being transparent, consistent with how you show up, and being willing to help people. And I think those are some of the main things.
For sure, for sure. Let's say that you're not in a company right now, right? You're a newbie, you're trying to learn the skills, you want to work in tech, right? It's tough out there. What would be some words of wisdom that you would give?
Yeah. So if you're a newbie and you're just trying to break into tech, research. So if I'm trying to break into tech, I am researching every single tech company out there. Then I'm figuring out what company do I want to work for, whether it's Amazon, Google, some of these bigger companies, or if it's a startup. And then trying to figure out, what tech stack they use, and then using all that research and that information that you gather from research to start learning those skills. Um, to help you kind of differentiate yourself and set yourself apart from the competition. And I think doing that will build up your confidence if you do get an interview and you try to break into tech. Another thing you can do is, if you have a community on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, is, see if you can connect with some of these people at these tech companies and learn about what they're doing and how they got into tech, and a lot of people are going to be willing to help you. And it kind of goes back to the same thing at if you are in a tech company and or you're in a non-tech role and you want to be in a tech role, you try to reach out to people, ask for help and build those relationships and just learn about their experience and take that information and um, use it to your advantage. You got so many tools out there to research companies and learn what they're doing and set yourself apart. So relationships are huge, in my opinion. Community's huge. This community here, like we're all here talking about community. This is massive. And so, like, if anybody on this call ever wanted to ask me something on LinkedIn, like, feel free to reach out and I'll try to help you out as much as possible.
Speaking of LinkedIn, let's say, Ben, there's someone here and he or she is like, but Ben, I don't even know what to post on LinkedIn. How do I even start? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, so you know, I would say like not to go deep on the AI train, but there's just so many tools right now that you can use, right? You can, think about prompt engineering is a very high skill right now that, a lot of companies are looking for. So say you have a free ChatGPT membership, you can say, what I would do is, if I wanted to get started, I would most likely say, hey, like, what are some really cool posts about this topic that I'm very passionate about? And maybe it gives you some ideas, right? Maybe that's not your first post, but it gives you ideas of like what you could post about, what's trending in the area that you're passionate about. And that can kind of give you a framework of what you would want to post. But I'd say, your first LinkedIn post, maybe it's just about yourself and what you're trying to do, and you're excited to be on LinkedIn and connect with people and, build up the coding community. So I would say like step one is get your LinkedIn profile set up. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then make a post about yourself and, what you're interested in and um, you're interested in connecting with people and building your LinkedIn up. And honestly, that's really all it takes. And then from there, you take that and run with it and be consistent with kind of what you post and just get out there and make a post.
Yeah, given all the tools out there, there really is no excuse, right, for not being able to create something. You have to have a little bit of grit to do something. Okay, we have less than 6 minutes left. We're gonna open up to questions. Plain Lover, if this is about your project, I'm sorry, we're past. But
It's not about my project, but you know a thing called Skype?
Yeah.
do
Skype?
we know? Yeah, yeah.
Like I still have it.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Plain Lover. Really appreciate really appreciate it.
Please tip my five.
Um, yep. Okay. All right. Any other questions at all? Any questions? We're gonna open it up. We're gonna open it up. Let's see. And we have Ben's LinkedIn here. Um, Ben, what just so if people do reach out to you, what would be like the how could you best serve them?
I would say anything from mindset to building up their confidence, helping them get started in coding, helping them transition from a non-tech role to a tech role, helping them with learning about AI tools and which ones to use for what use case, and just support. I know what it's like to be trying to break into tech without having a technical background, or just starting as a beginner. So I'm willing to help with kind of whatever. If they need help with building up their LinkedIn profile, that's something I'm constantly working on. So nothing's really off the table when it comes to community and developing different skills when it comes to your career. So
The fact that you're so giving with your time is a gift in itself. Last thing, do you is are there any like last words that you like to say to the audience here?
man, just keep coding, get on Codecademy, do your 100 days of Python or 100 days of SQL, get on the app. The Codecademy has a really fun app that you can do every morning in like 5 minutes. That's going to build up that muscle, that repetition muscle,
Right.
especially with the coding skills, right? But then when it comes to just perseverance, don't be scared to, if you fail, to just try again. Um, that's going to get you a long way. And I think that's probably the main thing is if you fall down, if your code doesn't work, just get back up and try again. And if you keep doing that and keep persisting, you're going to be successful.
That's great advice. Again, Ben's LinkedIn is in the chat here. Thanks so much for everyone coming today. Uh, Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, getting down and dirty, telling us about your history, everything from hitting pregnant cow to skateboarding to breaking into tech to maneuvering outside of your time with the boot camp, what you've done outside of the boot camp, how to build up your portfolio, your presence on LinkedIn. I've taken away a lot of gems. So did the audience here. This conversation is going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel within a week. So stay tuned. And I hope everyone benefited from this conversation as much as I did. So have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you soon. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.